The radical left has taken over the Democratic Party.
Hello and welcome to Think Progressively, covering politics and all the other chaos life has to offer. This is episode 89, recorded on Friday, May 19th from Milwaukee. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jason.
And on today's episode, Jason pulls me away from a week-long Zelda binge so we can talk about the Durham Report. You know, but it's going to have like all the crazy insights and it's going to blow your mind with the biggest bombshell in history or something. You didn't say I'm Jason, did you?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, I was waiting.
No, I did that part already.
So let's go to the headlines.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
And first up in headlines, we've got a good one.
I'm ready.
A civil suit was filed by former employee of Rudy Giuliani who accuses him of sexual harassment and attempting to sell pardons.
Ooh.
This suit was brought by Noelle Dunphy, who said that she was hired to handle business development for Mr. Giuliani's law firm. He agreed to pay her $1 million in salary and represent her as her lawyer. She never did receive her $1 million salary.
What a shocker.
Which is part of this lawsuit. I believe it is a $10 million suit being brought against him. And according to Miss Dunphy, Rudy Giuliani drank morning, noon, and night, as we've heard from other people, and was frequently intoxicated, and therefore his behavior was always unpredictable. She says he took Viagra constantly, would expose himself, and tell her that he could not do any work until, quote, "you take care of this."
Oh, boy.
Yes. He's one of those. And, you know, I saw the Borat movie, and they have the part in there with Giuliani, and he's like trying to put the microphone on, but he's like digging in his pants.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, you know, he's just a weird guy. He's doing weird stuff, but I honestly didn't think it was anything sexual. But
it was totally sexual.
The details of this lawsuit have me rethinking that. Because if he's doing this, I could totally see him doing it. At first I was like, I don't want to judge and say that he's going to try to take advantage of someone who is at least being presented as a minor in this situation. Like, you'd have to be a real creep to do that.
Yeah. Or you know, a real Giuliani.
It turns out that, yes, he is actually a real creep.
A real Cuomo.
She said that he made clear that satisfying his sexual demands, which came virtually anytime, anywhere, was an absolute requirement of her employment.
Oh my God.
And she has text and audio evidence.
Oh, good job, Noelle.
According to her, this includes alcohol-drenched rants that included sexist, racist, and anti-Semitic remarks.
What is happening?
That Rudy Giuliani, quote, often demanded that Dunphy work naked or in short shorts with an American flag on them that he bought for her.
Oh my God.
That weird, like, sexual fetish that Trump seems to have with flags. Apparently that also extends to Giuliani.
Let me see the pride of our nation. Jesus Christ.
She alleges that on several occasions she objected clearly and that he did not respect those objections. The suit also claims that Giuliani gave Dunphy access to more than 23,000 of his emails, some allegedly containing classified and privileged exchanges with then-President Trump, his family, secretaries of state, and former attorneys general.
Oh, great.
And in light of that, I think this suit might also have implications for other pending lawsuits that Rudy Giuliani is facing, like one with Dominion Systems. Because if she has access to these emails still, if she saved any of this stuff, specifically the attorneys general part, that might be an issue. Might be an issue for the upcoming Trump trial with Georgia as well. The lawsuit also alleges that Giuliani asked Dunphy if she knew anyone in need of a presidential pardon telling her that he was selling pardons for $2 million, which he and former President Trump would split.
Oh, beautiful.
The allegation added that Giuliani told Dunphy she could refer individuals seeking pardons to him so long as they did not go through the normal channels of the Office of the Pardon Attorney, because correspondence going to that office would be subject to disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act. So strictly off the books.
Yeah.
Bribery and selling pardons, we can't have records of that. You gotta just go through my private email.
This literally had to be the most corrupt presidential administration.
Oh, yes. By far.
In our country's history. My God.
And it's at every aspect, and just so many drain the swamp. They drained the swamp because they took all the critters out of it and gave them jobs.
No kidding, man. Like, oh.
So that is going to be interesting. Giuliani did respond and basically said that he was
It's a witch hunt.
Well, he said that he was in a romantic relationship with Dunphy and that he was not her employer. And they broke up because she was banned from a number of luxury hotels.
Oh, Jesus. Cool.
So that's his best defense going forward. Again, she has to. I've seen some of the texts. It's like she tells him that she's got to get dressed and get ready. And he says, oh, can you take, and this is like during the pandemic, so everything's remote, and it's on a video call, and he said, oh, can you take me in the shower with you? And she says, no, I gotta get ready. The cable guy's coming over to look at the cable. I gotta get going. And he said, like, oh, you should dress very modestly then, like maybe something in burlap. It's very weird. Like and then she has this evidence. I can't wait until these audio calls get released once this goes to trial. It should be amazing.
Incredible. So what the hell's going on in Kansas?
Well, next we move to the state of Kansas, and there's just some developments in the story today. But the story is that reportedly last week, the Kansas GOP was considering kicking out minority, youth, and women's groups from their party leadership.
Okay. I haven't jumped off the train yet. Well, I want to know why first. What's going on? Are they all evil or something? Like what's happening?
So they were considering a resolution this summer that would eject minority groups from the state party executive board. Well, according to critics, it was to consolidate power around the party's newly elected chairman, Mike Brown. And he is a far-right election denier who won the chairperson position by just 2 votes in February after he ran a failed bid for Secretary of State last year. And he proclaimed Kansas GOP was, quote, not the party of equity and entitlements.
So, screw people of color? Like, that's our motto? What's happening?
I think it's actually on the Kansas flag.
Oh my God, screw people of color.
A draft of the plan showed the proposed change, advanced by leadership of the Rules Committee, would have booted all statewide and congressional leaders off of the panel, which included those from the Kansas Federation of Republican Women, Kansas Young Republicans, Kansas Black Republican Council, and the state chapter of the National Republican Hispanic Assembly. So basically, they wanted to vote on all of the members of this executive board instead of having them appointed from these different groups.
Right.
So because they are minority groups, generally it's a lot harder for them to gain that kind of support. So he wanted them all kicked off of that board and basically just filled with his supporters.
With the free marketplace of ideas or something, right?
The move, Brown said, was important to unify the party and refocus it on winning in state and local elections over the next 18 months.
We care too much about the black people in our party.
Well, Kansas, I'm sure there's so many Democrats in power in Kansas.
We got one black guy, and I don't want to see him anymore.
He said, quote, I believe this recommendation to reconsider will allow our party to refocus on expanding our party and winning elections. Our party, the party of Lincoln, the party that championed women's suffrage and civil rights, has and will continue to support all of our GOP members' full involvement in our party. can't be in power.
Oh, God.
So that was last week.
Oh, no. What happened this week?
Well, after gaining national attention and bipartisan condemnation from state officials, Brown asked the Rules Committee to reconsider the proposal today, this Friday, and in a letter to Republicans, he claimed he had no involvement in the proposed change.
Oh, great. Okay. So you have just a little crazy person just running around and just do whatever he wants.
I mean, he just said last week that it was an important thing to consider and that he was all for it, and now he's like, no, I didn't have anything to do with this.
It's like the Trump thing. No, I've never heard of him. What are you talking about?
That was Jim. That wasn't me. He did it. So it's not going to happen, thankfully, but shows where the state of the Republican Party in this country is right now. They're too concerned about equity and inclusion, and we need to get rid of it all. And when someone says, hey, you're going to just further disenfranchise groups that have been historically oppressed, that seems to be a surprise to them. But is it?
Well, we got two more stories to show really where we are right now. So let's move from Kansas to Missouri, the bastion of freedom and crappy suburban people with way too many guns. Back in 2021, Caitlin Anderson, who was 6 months pregnant, was unfortunately killed by a driver and actually one of her colleagues as well, while she was working on the job for the Department of Transportation.
Slow down when you're in construction sites, people.
I mean, this is actually a really sad thing. And then unfortunately, her fetus also died as well. Anderson's family tried to file a wrongful death lawsuit with the state, but apparently Missouri's worker compensation laws forbids lawsuits if the worker dies on the job, which maybe we have to do a main segment about workers' compensation law real soon, because that sounds insane to me. Because like the article also says, in many other states. I'm like, what?
Hey, if you're dead...
Sucks to be you, I get. What is happening? Anyway.
You can't work anymore when you get better, so we don't need to cover anything for you.
So, because we live in an alternate hellscape universe where Missouri can legally declare a fetus having legal rights now, thanks to the overturning of Roe v. Wade, the Anderson family decided to file a new lawsuit for the wrongful death of Caitlin's unborn son, Jax. Okay, you know what? You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Here is a wrongful death of our now full-fledged human person with rights, this fetus. The state's lawyers then argued that the case should be dismissed because under Missouri's compensation laws, are you ready? The fetus should be considered an employee of the agency.
He's also not going to get any workers' compensation.
What is happening right now? Jason, where are we? The fact that now
I just am picturing a little reflective vest and hard hat.
Just inside the womb.
Like a little microscopic one. Around like this zygote with a tail.
But again, I want to really...
I can't stop picturing it. He's like got one of those little stop and slow signs. He's like trying to wave cars in, but he doesn't have any hands.
Now I'm just picturing an ultrasound with a hard hat. That's all I'm doing. I hate this. But this is literally why we keep talking about how insane the Republican Party is today. Because now, after Roe v. Wade has been overturned, we have to argue about the employment rights of unborn fetuses and the legality of it, because you have stupid, short-sighted Republicans who are saying, well, absolutely, life begins at conception, which means we should give all legal rights to those who are already conceived in the womb, which is freaking bonkers. And I'll tell you why it's bonkers, because in the same state, Missouri, in 2018, a man attempted to appeal his conviction for child molestation by arguing that the state's personhood language required the court to calculate the age of the victim, not from birth, so from like 0 to 18 years old, but from point of conception, which means several months before you turn 18, which would have made her above the statutory limit age for actual consensual sex.
Yeah, I didn't molest a minor. I just sexually assaulted a woman.
Oh my God. Now, luckily, that by the grace of whatever God you want to believe in or not, that case was dismissed. And
the God of the judgment of the judge.
Because it was 2018, we still had at least Roe v. Wade, and women had some autonomy in this frickin' country. But now, who knows? You have states that are just saying, we are going to say you have legal rights the second you are even conceived, which is even hard to describe half the time. We don't know when actual physical attributes even happen and occur, but we're going to give full-on employment rights.
Well, if it benefits the state.
Oh my God. And again, luckily, the judge ruled against classifying the fetus as an employee, because that would lead to quote, an extremely absurd result. You think? It also has prompted legislators in Missouri to introduce Jax's Law, which would prohibit fetuses from being considered employees. What are we doing anymore as a country? I don't want to be on this planet anymore. This is insane. And in our final story, let's move to the great state of Florida.
Yay.
Where everything good happens in Florida.
The state where the governor is currently fighting with the state's largest corporation.
But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how a Florida teacher is currently under investigation for showing a Disney film with a gay character.
Uh-oh. You can't say that in Florida.
No, you cannot.
Disney, I mean.
Oh. So according to the NBC News article that we have here, Jenna Barbie, who is a K-8 teacher in Brooksville, was put on administrative leave and put under investigation for showing her class the 2022 film Strange World.
Have you seen that one?
I actually haven't. It's on my list.
I haven't either. I think that's one of the lower, watched Disney Pixar films.
Well, I heard nothing, marketing-wise about it beforehand. They just put it out, and shocker, that's what happened.
I really don't think I've seen, the last 5 or 6 Pixar movies, and for a while there I was watching most of them, but I don't know, he fell off Pixar.
Well, if you guys don't know about Strange World, one of the main characters is gay, and
shocking.
Right, and he has a brief crush on this other guy.
Oh, jeez.
For a hot second in the beginning of the film, and then they go off on an adventure.
Close your ears, children.
And that's literally it. There is nothing ever brought up again. It's just he's a gay guy that exists.
Yeah, that's the word. You can't have kids knowing that. What will they tell their children? It is Florida, after all.
After the investigation was underway, Barbie put out a TikTok which went viral, criticizing the entire thing, criticized the school board for even putting this on her anyway, saying that the whole thing was ludicrous and ridiculous. Oh, God.
Yes, she showed a children's movie rated PG in her classroom, and Florida has essentially a law against that. That's crazy. That's where we're at right now.
And in that video, Barbie recognized one of the school board members, Shannon Rodriguez, who has been the most vocal about the whole thing. And Rodriguez responded at the following board meeting by accusing Barbie of, quote, stripping the innocence of her 10-year-old child by screening the film.
How dare you show that
a Disney film.
Not only is there a gay character, but it's Disney in Florida.
Can you imagine how freaking sheltered you have to be that a Disney movie is stripping your child's innocence?
Imagine if they saw Snagglepuss.
But of course, Rodriguez did not stop there. She went on to say, quote, it's not a teacher's job to impose their beliefs upon a child, religious, sexual orientation, gender identity, and any of the above. Allowing movies such as this assist teachers in opening a door
grooming
for conversations that have no place in classrooms.
Yes. Showing the kids a PG-rated movie
is grooming. She also added, as a leader in this community, I'm not going to stand by and allow this minority to infiltrate our schools.
What's her last name again?
Rodriguez.
What did they say about who can be white supremacists and who can't be? I forgot.
There are just way too many crazy people in power, man. This is insane. This entire week's worth of stories are just insane to me.
Week? You're limiting it to a week.
No, I'm just saying, just this. Shut up.
You remember we started this podcast because we literally were going insane with the state of politics in this country.
I hate everything. Our main things are going to be dumber too. Oh my God, we have the fox in the heads. Oh, it's going to get worse. I guess we'll go there next.
M&M's will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous. Until the moment you wouldn't want to have a drink with any one of them. That's the goal. When you're totally turned off, they've won.
Boy ain't right.
This week,
no,
on Foxed in the Head, reoccurring character and little shit weasel, Ben Shapiro. So I just saw a video, I guess it was posted 2 days ago on the Daily Wire. Ben Shapiro talking about the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition cover models.
Which just sounds
for
gross.
This year.
That just sounds gross right there. I don't like that.
But he wants to assure you that he would never look at anything like that.
He is a conservative, by the way.
Yes, he mentions he's
a religious conservative, by the way.
He is a conservative Jewish man.
Who is apparently a Sports Illustrated devotee.
Yes.
As he described himself as.
He said said he had a Sports Illustrated subscription from the age of 13 or 14.
For like 20 years.
But he called to say he didn't want the swimsuit issue every year. He says he got a different, instead of the swimsuit issue, he would get like a different Sports
like
Illustrated.
regular.
I don't think that's how it works. They don't like make a separate magazine just for people who don't want the swimsuit edition. Like, I know they offer that you can decline it, but it's not like we just have this spare magazine that we're only going to give to you for this, because it's a weekly thing. So it's like recent news and articles and stuff. So I kind of, I'm not sure that he's telling the truth here. I think it might be a lot like when he had that video outside of Home Depot with his single piece of dimensional lumber in a plastic bag to protest the rising lumber prices.
So, okay,
I think it might be like that.
Before we even get into Ben Shapiro's crazy screed, can we just talk a little bit about how weird it is to even have like a sports magazine doing a swimsuit issue?
Yeah, well,
at all.
So it started in 1964 during the winter months when there really wasn't much to talk about in sports. Like after the NBA and NFL seasons were done, they kind of just needed something, and their subscriber base is like younger males, so they decided swimsuit issue to do something and to increase their subscription base. But yes, it is kind of anachronistic at this point, but it does still exist. It has launched a lot of careers. Kathy Ireland, Kate Upton, Tyra Banks. There have been a few models that have kind of really made their career after they've been the cover of Sports Illustrated, but these days I don't think that many people pay attention to it anymore. You can just go on the internet.
Well, and we'll talk about that too, which is actually kind of why I like the direction they're going with the swimsuit edition anyway. Because I feel like today, now it's just kind of like, well, now it's just a tradition. We just have to keep doing it, and no one cares about it anymore, so we'll just kind of have fun with it.
Yeah, but Ben Shapiro wants to let you know that
he's not for fun.
Yes, he is not reading the swimsuit edition, according to him. And this is, again, supposed to be a 13-year-old boy. Quote, I had ideological objections to it because, again, I'm not big into the objectification of women. I'm actually not a huge fan of women in bathing suits pandering for the male gaze.
At 13 years old.
Yeah, 13-year-old, the standard 13-year-old boy stuff. Feminist critique from anti-feminist Ben Shapiro talking about the male gaze. Woke Ben Shapiro. But no, that never happened. If he didn't get the swimsuit issue, it's because his parents wouldn't let him.
Right.
Guaranteed. There is no 13-year-old boy pre-high-speed internet days not wanting the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition.
Have you ever thought about how crappy of a childhood Ben Shapiro must have had with his parents for him to turn out the way he did?
Yeah, it must have been real fun.
Oh my God.
So, is he upset that Sports Illustrated is continuing the objectification of women by not discontinuing the swimsuit issue?
You know, like the feminist critique stuff that 13-year-old...
Is that why?
That woke, radical 13-year-old Ben Shapiro was doing.
Nope. He is mad that 81-year-old Martha Stewart and transgender German pop singer Kim Petras are two of the cover models this year. Two of the four that they have. Quote... The people they will be putting in bathing suits are old women and dudes. And what is his logic and reason attack?
Yeah, give me the facts, man.
Right,
give me the facts.
Cool kids philosopher Ben Shapiro. I'm done with the voice because I don't think I could even do it with this quote. But he says his reason, like just huge galaxy brain level stuff here. But now this year they've decided to go even further. They have Martha Stewart in the swimsuit edition of Sports Illustrated. This is a parody of itself. I don't even know what to say about this. First of all, I mean, why are you... No, just no. Just stop that. No, that's not good, Martha. Just stop. I mean, full credit to Sports Illustrated for putting an ex-felon on their cover, I suppose. But why? Like, just no. Ugh. And I transcribed that word for word. That is what he said. We'll link the video. You can watch it if you really want to. Truly, one of the intellectuals of our time, Ben Shapiro. And I actually added, it's a fun fact, I found out in doing research for this, Martha Stewart was a model, including a swimsuit model, when she was in her 20s.
Okay, so let's talk about this. Number one, have you seen Martha Stewart's?
Yes, for an 81-year-old woman.
81.
Amazing.
She's 81 years old, and she looks fine. Who cares? Like, yes, people are saying, oh, it's Photoshopped. They're all freaking Photoshopped, you idiot.
She says it's not.
And I don't care if it is.
I mean, it's there. Either it is or it isn't. I know that's what everyone's saying.
But I don't care, because all models, like even those in their 20s, get Photoshopped. I don't care. Either way, if you're 81 years old and you look good enough to look like that on a Sports Illustrated cover, freaking go for it. Rock it out. We talked about right before we started recording, I would not look that good at 80. I ain't gonna look like a lump of mush when I am 81 years old. Are you kidding me?
And I look like that now.
And number two, with Kim Petras, if you didn't know she was a transgender woman, you would have no freaking idea from looking at her pictures. Absolutely not. And the fact that Ben, and you could see Ben struggling calling her a dude in this video too, because he's like, well, it's a dude, with a dick, and he's sitting there looking at it, and she looks great in that swimsuit picture, and he's like struggling within himself, just like imploding with all the logic and reason. He just can't take it anymore.
Right. Well, he's got to struggle, because it's like, on one hand, he doesn't think it should be Martha Stewart because she's old and icky. But then you have Kim Petras, who is young and looks amazing, but he knows that she's not the gender she was assigned at birth.
So screw her!
Yeah, he clarifies that he thinks it's worse to have a transgender woman on the cover rather than a woman in her 80s. He says Martha Stewart's the second worst.
Yep.
In case, you were making a tier list at home of where to put everybody. He said a bunch of horrible, bigoted, anti-trans stuff that we're not going to repeat. I would never write down. And he tells his viewers that it might be time to cancel your Sports Illustrated subscriptions.
Oh, it's the woke cancel culture coming again.
Woke feminist Ben Shapiro trying to cancel Sports Illustrated. And does anyone actually have a Sports Illustrated subscription?
Other than Ben Shapiro, apparently.
Like, who subscribes to a weekly magazine?
But again, that's the whole point, Jason. We were talking about this before. Who cares? Especially for the swimsuit edition. Who cares?
And if you don't, I don't want Martha Stewart and I don't want Kim Petras, well, you've got two other options. It's like Megan Fox and another TV host. Did you see swimsuit women,
Ben, struggle hard trying to talk about how attractive these women work in comparison to Martha Stewart and Kim Petras?
Well, because that shows their worth, right?
But not even just that, but he was trying so hard to not look like a pervert. And it was so fun to watch him just I mean, they're really, they're really attractive, they're really good women. I'm like, dude, get laid once. I know you have a kid, but my God, they
were in separate rooms during the conception of the child.
Oh my God, dude.
We even had Megyn Kelly, formerly of Fox News, talking about that teenage boys use this for alone time in the bathroom. I don't know if you know, Megan, but there's this thing called the internet now, and teenage boys don't care about the Sports Illustrated swimsuit.
Why would they care about the Sports Illustrated cover?
Yeah, 30 years ago, sure. Early Ben Shapiro, that's what he was using it. Well, that's why his parents wouldn't let him get it, is because that's what it was going to be used for. But these days, I imagine it's mostly 60-year-old men. And so Martha Stewart is probably the perfect demographic for them.
Well, and that's the other thing. It's why are you, the fact that you're on the side of saying, well, boys need something to let loose nowadays, so they gotta get this magazine cover. What are your values anymore? I don't understand what's going on. These people are so stupid.
And she has teenage boys, so she knows at home, right? She's got 3 teenage boys.
That's why I have so many subscriptions to Sports Illustrated. I don't know what to do with them anymore. We're just floor to ceiling, just tons of magazines, and they're all stuck together. We just can't take it anymore.
Crunchy socks as far as the eye can see. They need better spank material. Martha Stewart's not going to cut it. It's going to be a very bad week at the Kelly household.
Someone save that clip and give it to their kids for their 18th birthday. That's what they need for their 18th. Having their mom talk about how teenage boys need to jerk off to a Sports Illustrated cover.
better material.
Yeah.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? It's hard to get any word in with this clown.
In lieu of talking about Zelda Tears of the Kingdom,
Which we really want to do
which
instead.
we really want to talk about instead, we're going to talk about the Durham Report.
The Durham Report.
I was curious when you wrote that. I was going to see what
Yeah,
you were gonna
it had like a sound effect.
Yeah,
thing.
you're ready to go.
Yep.
Republicans and conservatives have been waiting so long for this report. Well, after 4 long years and over $6.5 million, the report is finally out. In a Fox News interview, Bill Barr, former AG for the Trump administration, said, "In my own view, is that the evidence shows that we're not dealing with just the mistakes and sloppiness. There was something far more troubling here."
It's that Bill Barr was the Attorney General of the United States.
So what exactly is the Durham Report, and does it hold up to expectations? Well, put it simply, the Durham Report was put in place by Attorney General Bill Barr following the Mueller report, and the whole point was to conduct a preliminary review into certain matters surrounding the 2016 election. Basically, a month after the Mueller report came out, Barr appointed someone to investigate the investigation.
And the Mueller report was investigating the Trump campaign involvement with Russian agents to influence the 2016 election.
From the Durham Report itself, the direct order from Bill Barr states, "The special counsel is authorized to investigate whether any federal official, employee, or any other person or entity violated the law in connection with the intelligence, counterintelligence, or law enforcement activities directed at the 2016 presidential campaigns, individuals associated with those campaigns, and individuals associated with the administration of President Donald J. Trump, including but not limited to the Crossfire Hurricane and the investigation of Special Counsel Robert S. Mueller III." That's a sentence.
Yeah. So this is when Barack Obama was the president during the 2016 presidential campaign between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. So that's the time frame we're talking about. Those are the people involved. I thought Joe Biden did all of this by watching conservative media over the past week.
So when I started reading, I didn't read the whole thing. The whole thing's like 300 pages long, but I did read the executive summary of it. I did have an initial issue right away.
Not surprising.
Right. While talking about the Mueller report, Durham writes this: "That investigation, quote, did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities."
So not that didn't happen, but that they didn't establish. See, and I don't.
Well,
to me, this
we'll
doesn't
get
make
to it.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
We'll
Okay,
get to
but,
it. You're reading my mind right now.
But that, in his opinion, the Mueller report did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government while it was conducting election interference activities. That it happened, but there was no conspiracy between the two parties.
Well, to make it even worse, Jason, is that the Durham report actually misquoted or took it out of context from the Mueller report. Here is the full sentence, because God forbid Durham read an entire sentence of the Mueller report, for God's sakes, from the Mueller report itself. "Although the investigation established that the Russian government perceived it would benefit from a Trump presidency and worked to secure that outcome, and that the campaign expected it would benefit electorally from information stolen and released through Russian efforts, the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities."
So both sides thought it would be mutually beneficial for Trump to be president. The Russians wanted Trump to be president because he is more favorable to them, and that obviously the Trump campaign wanted the Russians to release propaganda on their behalf to try to win them the presidency. That the investigation somehow, and again, we'll get to it, did not establish that the Trump campaign directly conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activity.
Well, so that's kind of my whole point, is a big part of the Durham report is actually just a huge misrepresentation of the Mueller report. So let me be clear, and it's been a while, so I'm sure a lot of you guys don't even care or remember about the Mueller report anymore, and that's fine.
Seeing as how what we wanted to come out of it did not come out of it, so a lot of people have just kind of moved on.
Bob Mueller, and even in his report, and as well as like in interviews and speeches and stuff like that afterwards, unequivocally said that Russia interfered with the 2016 election in favor of Donald Trump and to hurt Hillary Clinton. There is no ands, ifs, or buts about that. Then what the Mueller report tried to look at is if whether or not the Trump campaign intentionally conspired with Russian officials. And that's another another big part where you had the Mueller report actually looking at something called conspiracy, which is not collusion. Collusion is not a legal term, so they used conspiracy, which is a huge, very high level of evidence that is required to satisfy that type of charge, and you actually have to have intent or show an intent behind said charge. Well, as you can probably tell, that's nearly impossible to do since we can't read people's minds. So what this report found, the Mueller report, is that both the campaign and Russia did everything they could up until the point where they found each other shaking hands saying, let's make a deal to steal the 2016 election. They did everything else up until that point. And that is what the Mueller report found. So the fact that you have the Durham report spreading misinformation already about the Mueller report, saying that Mueller found no evidence that they colluded or conspired in any coordinated in any single way, is completely dishonest and disingenuous. Because although there was no direct coordination and conspiracy between the two, there definitely was collusion of that type of sort. Okay, so what does Durham actually have to write 300 pages about? Well, it all centers around the Crossfire Hurricane operation. Basically, that's the FBI's investigation into the Trump campaign's ties to Russia during the 2016 election, which I just said was found. I mean, literally, these are in the Mueller report. Don Jr. literally met with a Kremlin lawyer who promised dirt on Hillary Clinton at Trump Tower. It was in the report. And the only reason why Don Jr. wasn't charged on conspiracy is because he made the quote, I'm too stupid to know this was illegal argument.
Which I guess works if your dad is the president.
I'm not kidding. Don Jr. literally committed a conspiracy against the United States and just said, oh, I didn't know that was illegal, so I just, whatever. And again, going back to conspiracy versus collusion, that is why Bob Mueller could not charge him with conspiracy against his own country. But he did it. On top of that, Paul Manafort gave polling data to a Russian spy. And Michael Flynn, you probably heard that name before, promised literal sanction relief to a Russian ambassador if Trump won the election. And also, just make this clear, this was also all confirmed by the Republican-led Senate Judiciary investigation that happened, I believe, in 2021? I don't remember. That concluded that Russia did influence with purposeful campaigns to help Trump and hurt Clinton. Again, I just want to repeat that. The Republicans already knew this. But specifically going back to Crossfire Hurricane, the FBI investigated 4 people relating to Trump's campaign: George Papadopoulos, Carter Page, Paul Manafort, and Michael Flynn. And again, just for everyone's info, 3 of the 4 of those were indicted and sentenced.
Oh, we'll get into that too.
So what did the Durham report find? Well, it actually didn't find that much. It was super critical of the FBI's practices. Quote, in light of the foregoing, there is a continuing need for the FBI and the department to recognize that lack of analytical rigor, apparent confirmation bias, and an overwillingness to rely on information from individuals connected to political opponents caused investigators to fail to adequately consider alternate hypotheses and to act without appropriate objectivity or restraint in pursuing allegations of collusion or conspiracy between a U.S. political campaign and a foreign power.
Wow, that is bombshell news.
So what does that actually mean?
Investigators have confirmation bias when they're looking into someone possibly committing a crime?
Right.
Wow, I've never heard anyone say that before in my life.
So what does that actually mean? Basically, throughout the report, Durham said the FBI investigators' bias against Trump pushed them to be brash with their investigation when they should have had more preliminary processes in place so as to not to jump into any conclusions. There's this really weird, almost like conspiracy-laden theme all throughout the report where he keeps classifying something as called the Clinton plan. And
President Hillary Clinton in 2016.
He accused the Clinton campaign of feeding information to the FBI, and because the FBI hated Trump so much, they would immediately act on that without any actual checks or balances. They would just went off and just started an entire investigation just based on unfounded evidence.
How many times have people said when the cops think they know who did something, that they will just make anything look like evidence? They lie to people. These are things that people have been pushing for reform in law enforcement for 60 years. And the Republicans are touting this as the deep state conspiracy, that investigators showed confirmation bias while they were doing this investigation, everybody. It shows that they hate Trump more than anyone else. Like, no, they do this every day. This is their job. It's what people have been talking about forever, that this needs to change in the American justice system. And Republicans think that they just invented the wheel with this investigation.
So, and like Jason said, this falls way short of the political deep state conspiracy that Republicans and conservatives were hoping for.
Not what they're saying, though.
And that was it. That was the worst of it. I want to make this very clear, and we'll talk about more specifics in a second, but like, there was nothing new in this whole thing. It's 300 pages of a weird conspiratorial hit piece that our government paid $6.5 million for, and it found nothing.
Yeah, this guy was the Walford Brimley cosplayer, John Durham, was handpicked to do this by William Barr, who was 100% acting as an agent of Donald Trump and helping him grind this particular axe of, I don't like that the FBI investigated me during the 2016 campaign when everyone in my campaign was colluding with Russian officials to try to win the election for me. I don't like that, and we need to basically, he already fired everyone that was involved in the FBI at that time, but he wanted everyone to be prosecuted and thrown in prison for it.
Well, and again, this whole notion of the FBI was too brash and they really need to be more composed and reserved when they're going through his investigation.
Abolish the FBI. Abolish the FBI. We're finally on board with the Republicans.
We had George freaking Papadopoulos bragging about how Russia was going to actually just start leaking all this dirty information on the Clinton campaign within the next couple of days. And then the FBI got wind of that. And guess what happened a couple of days later? Russian dropped a ton of stuff because they hacked the DNC servers and put tons of dirt out into the open. You can't make a conspiracy out of things that actually happened. So what else did Durham actually ask the FBI to do? Well, like I said, he wanted a preliminary but not a full investigation right away. And he didn't want really anything else from the FBI. Quote, "This report does not recommend any wholesale changes in the guidelines and policies that the department and the FBI now have in place to ensure proper conduct and accountability in how counterintelligence activities are carried out. Rather, it is intended to accurately describe the matters that fell under our review and to assist the Attorney General in determining how the department and FBI can do better, more credible job in fulfilling its responsibilities in analyzing and responding to politically charged allegations in the future." So even in Durham's report, the FBI is fine. He just didn't like a couple of things the way they handled, which we can criticize as well, during the Crossfire Hurricane investigation.
And a lot of this was actually found in a investigation years ago. As soon as Trump was made president, this was looked into. I think it was the Judicial Committee investigated, made a bunch of recommendations for the FBI to change the way it's exactly what this is, change the way you launch these investigations, which those changes were already made like 3 years ago.
Well, I mean, this was by the Horowitz report, the Michael Horowitz report is what you're referring to, which I have a little bit later.
So, yes, he made all these because this investigation took so long. Another investigation actually had already concluded and made some of the same recommendations, and they were already implemented by the time this one came out.
Yep. What else does Durham have to say? Well, the FBI was really too mean to Trump and was way nicer to Hillary Clinton.
And, gee, I wonder why that would be. Do you think the Trump campaign was very cooperative with government officials? Like, you've seen or heard anything that Trump has ever said to anyone who is even in the least bit combative with him, right?
But it's so weird because throughout the report, Durham makes like this weird juxtaposition between the Trump-Russia investigation and also an investigation from the FBI into Clinton's like potential donors, where Russia was trying to actually infiltrate the Clinton campaign and buy influence with the campaign because of that as well. And he gets super angry because the FBI let the Clinton campaign know that they are a target of Russian hackers and Russian interference, but didn't let the Trump campaign know because
they were the ones working with
they were the
literal
suspects of conspiracy. He spent so much time on this, Jason.
Yeah.
And throughout the entire report, he just keeps going back to how it was so unfair to Trump and his campaign because the FBI treated the Clinton administration so much better. It was so much better reserve and policies. It's so dumb.
I think we should fire FBI Director Joe Biden.
And finally, Durham suggested that an office of politically sensitive investigations would be taking place and established. Sure, whatever. If you're so concerned about politically sensitive stuff happening in a super hotbed political environment in the United States right now.
Well, with Trump running again, we're probably going to need that, right? The highly suspect, morally corrupt candidate once again for president. We probably do need an office that specifically deals with investigations into presidential campaigns because people like Trump are going to keep running for president going forward.
Right.
I mean, stop being criminals, I guess, but that's kind of a tough one these days.
So did anything come out of this report at all? Well, no, not really. Like we already talked about, most of the things that actually came from this report happened from other reports like the Michael Horowitz report that was in 2019. Durham did bring criminal charges against 3 people, so there's that. He lost both cases that did go to trial.
And for the sake of context there, the federal conviction rate is like over 95%. The federal government does not lose cases, and they lost 2 during this investigation. And I believe Durham was chastised by the judge in one of these cases.
He was, because he was basically laughed out.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the third, an ex-FBI lawyer named Kevin Kleinsmith pled guilty to altering an email that was used to support a surveillance application. However, like Jason said, this also wasn't found through Durham's report. Michael Horowitz found it in 2019.
Yeah, this was...
So
happened before.
Basically, Durham's just trying to take the credit of someone else's work. That's all it is. And
well, he's going to be in prison forever, right? Because what he did was so horrible. It was worse than Watergate. That's what I heard from Newsmax. Worse than Watergate.
He was sentenced to community service.
Oh, the hypocrisy. And to juxtapose this one person that was found guilty of taking a shortcut on a legal document and sentenced to community service, the result of the Mueller report,
if you don't remember,
which is now what everyone's saying is it was invalid, never had any evidence, no reason the investigation should have even taken place at all fake, all a witch hunt, the greatest witch hunt in the history of politics. Donald Trump was treated the worst of any citizen by their government in history. The Mueller report actually ended up with 34 individuals and 3 companies being indicted or pleading guilty, including 5 Trump aides who we talked about who struck plea deals. And again, those were George Papadopoulos, former Trump campaign foreign policy advisor who lied to the FBI about contacts with Russian officials, Paul Manafort, Trump's former campaign chair, who was indicted on a total of 25 different counts by Mueller's team, related mostly to his past work for Ukrainian politicians and his finances. So it actually wasn't a lot to do with this Russian collusion, but they found like all this other stuff that he had done in the past and like all of this shady financial work that he did in Ukraine, along with his aide and another former Trump campaign aide, Rick Gates, who was charged with a lot of the same things that Manafort was because they worked together. As we said, Michael Flynn, former general who was Trump's national security advisor, also found guilty of lying to the FBI about contacts with Russians, and Roger Stone, longtime Trump advisor and Riddler lookalike, who was convicted on 7 counts of lying to House Intelligence Committee about his efforts to contact WikiLeaks during the campaign and tampering with a witness to try to get him to corroborate his story that he had made up.
You know what's even funnier is that I actually saw him tweet about the Durham report about how bad and how screwed Joe Biden is.
Yes, Joe Biden, who was the most powerful person in the world at the time of the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, the vice president.
And I do want to just make it very clear. There were actual issues with the FBI's handling of the Russia investigation. The FBI did mishandle their FISA applications to wiretap Carter Page, and they did a very bad job with that, and we should all be suspicious as hell because of how they just went about that. And they did omit facts and make falsehoods to obtain that warrant.
Like, you know, how the NSA wiretaps the entire American population without any actual constitutional authority to do so?
Yep. ISA agents, we love you. And there may have actually been confirmation bias which led to cutting corners during Crossfire Hurricane.
They didn't crossfire their T's and dot their I's.
Ah, I get it. Except the Horowitz report, which we'll also link, already stated that, and that they also could not find any political bias or improper motivation as the investigation went on. We did not find documentary or testimonial evidence that political bias or improper motivation influenced his decision-making. We similarly found that while the formal documentation opening each of the 4 individual investigations was approved by Strzok, who led Operation Hurricane, Crossfire Hurricane, there it is.
Operation the Miami Hurricanes.
The executive summary review of 4 FISA applications and other aspects of the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation decisions to do so were reached by consensus among the Crossfire Hurricane agents and analysts who identified individuals associated with the Trump campaign who had recently traveled to Russia or had other alleged ties to Russia. We did not find documentary or testimony evidence that political bias or improper motivation influenced the decisions to open the 4 individual investigations. Also, can we just talk about how confirmation bias, when Durham spent 4 years and millions of dollars to come up with this piece of garbage report, the fact that the Horowitz report alone just debunks everything he had, and then already like any victories he would have had already like took the steam out of it anyway.
Well, and again, it was a witch hunt that found an awful lot of witches.
Sure.
Like there were 30-some witches convicted.
It's so ridiculous. And to make it worse, as bad as the Durham report is, people misrepresenting it are even worse.
Yes. Oh, it's being represented as just estranged from reality.
So let's talk about some of those misconceptions and myths. And you can probably debunk it yourself, so play along at home with us. We're going to start with CNN, where CNN hosts claim that Durham said the investigation into the Trump campaign in Russia should have never happened.
And I've heard this from a lot of news sources.
Right. No, it didn't. It called for a preliminary investigation to precede the full investigation. And other security scholars were all in agreement saying that once a preliminary investigation were to happen, it would have definitely went to a full investigation right after that. So the only thing that Durham actually got upset about would have been just fine if they just did a little preliminary work instead of just jumping right into a full investigation. The second CNN thing you got coming from Jake Tapper, who said that the report was, quote, devastating to the FBI and, quote, to a degree does exonerate Donald Trump. No, it does not. The FBI is absolutely not devastated from this whole thing because, like Jason said, they were already doing all the corrections from previous reports because that's all this report was. Anything that came out of this thing, like the Kleinsmith or whatever, whoever the FBI guy that went actually pled guilty, that was already found in the Horowitz report. Nothing new came from this report. So how could this report be devastating to the FBI? And the second thing, the fact, and I've seen so many people, whether it's freaking Fox News all over the place, Tim Pool, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, anybody who keeps saying that Donald Trump has now been fully exonerated by this report. No, it does not. Because the whole point of the Mueller investigation was to show that Russia interfered with the 2016 election, which it did unequivocally, and to see what the ties between the Trump campaign and Russia officials were.
And they were many.
And there were many. The only thing that they did not do is charge the Trump campaign with literal conspiracy.
The only reason that Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, and Michael Flynn are free today is because they were pardoned by Donald Trump after being convicted of the crimes that they committed that were found in this report.
So absolutely not. It does not at all exonerate Donald Trump. You have people like Glenn Beck, Steve Bannon, and Tim Pool, of course.
Bastions of journalism.
Who said there was a concerted effort by the, quote, deep state to weaponize the FBI. Even the Wall Street Journal said there was a deep state conspiracy to influence the FBI. No, it did not. This is so dumb. This is so stupid. The fact that a couple of things went wrong, and yes, absolutely, they did go wrong, and absolutely should the FBI be criticized to the fullest extent of the law to do so.
Defund the FBI. Defund the FBI.
That does not mean there was some secret cabal conspiracy between the Clintons and the FBI to have this entire weird campaign to just destroy Donald Trump. And at the end of the day, again, with any conspiracy logic or cabal or Illuminati bullshit, it didn't work anyway. The whole point was to beat Trump, and he still won. So what are you even talking about this deep state conspiracy? I've still never met the most inept group of people I've ever heard of in my entire life.
Than the deep state.
Than the deep state. Because they have all the money.
And all the power.
They have all the money.
Yeah.
They have all the power, and they can't do a damn thing. And they get exposed by people like Tim frickin' Pool all day long. Ugh. This whole thing was so stupid. It's another manufactured Republican BS talking point, and Republican leaders know it's BS.
It's, again, projection, just like most things that are connected to the Trump campaign. Oh, you're biased, and you have all these political hacks doing all of this work specifically for you, trying to advance your agenda. Meanwhile, they've got John Durham doing this report.
So don't get fooled when your Uncle Frank tries to tell you that Joe Biden's going to get, I don't know, thrown in Guantanamo or something like that because of the Durham Report.
FBI director, CIA director, secret deep state president, Joe Biden, was not an outgoing vice president who had no aspirations for further political office in 2016. He was the man directing all of this because he knew that in 2020 he would be running against Donald Trump for president, even though he had given up on running for president in 2016. He just knew. He knew this was going to happen.
So don't get fooled. Don't buy into the misinformation. Don't buy into the propaganda. Don't buy into the bullshit. Share this podcast, I guess, if you get questioned on it. I don't know. Or even better yet, just tell them to read the damn report and try to have them explain to you, because I'm sure they won't be able to.
Yeah, just look at the convictions that came out of the Mueller investigation and look at the conviction that came out of this investigation, and you tell me,
are these the same? That's it. I'm going back to Legend of Zelda. Good night, everybody. Thank you for listening. We hope to see you in the next episode. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at ThinkProPod. You can email us at thinkpropod@gmail.com. And remember, when in doubt, think progressively. So let's talk about Tears of the Kingdom. I now understand.
We could do an hour on this.
I now understand. Okay, so Jason.
Have you gone into the depths?
No.
Oh.
Okay, Jason, I haven't done a single big mission yet.
Yeah, I know. It feels like I played this game for like 20 hours and it feels like I just started.
Well, here's my thing. All right. I don't understand this. Either I am the worst gamer I have ever seen in my entire freaking life. This game is so hard. Because I am getting one shot on everything. It doesn't matter if it's like a typical like bokoblin thing, like a little normal enemy or a boss. If I get hit once, and I've been one shot so many times, I don't know what to do anymore, man.
Well, first you gotta use you got the paraglider thing, right?
I got the paraglider now.
So you gotta get some stamina pots or meals that replenish your stamina, and you gotta take that first tower that shoots you way up in the air and just glide towards the castle, because you can get in the castle, like the floating castle thing, and there's a bunch of armor and weapons in there that you can get really early.
Oh wow!
And use that kind of get you a better head start.
I learned how rockets work now.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to the rockets yet.
That's something. Have you seen all the TikToks?
Oh yes, I've seen a lot of videos of people building like giant
stealth bombers and like freaking mechs.
Yeah, and giant machines to control.
Or I've seen people crucify
may or may not have large phalluses attached to them that shoot fire.
I've seen people crucifying Korax.
Yes, the Korax. Korax are getting abused. Like it's like Guantanamo Bay for Korax out there.
Dude, I haven't figured out wheels yet. Are you kidding me right now?
Yeah, no, I tried building one of the wheel and it didn't turn because the goop just sticks to it. So I know it can be done. I'm not there yet.
I'm just sitting with the wheel like, it no turn. Why it no turn? I glued it to the board. I feel so stupid. Anyway.
Now we know what's going to be in the outtakes. It'll be a very long discussion on Tears of the Kingdom. I would rather do that than
I would rather do it.
Yes.
Yeah, Tears of the Kingdom thing.
If you want a Tears of the Kingdom episode, let us know.
Email us.
I'm here for you.
Email us at thinkpropod@gmail.com.
Smash that like button, hit subscribe.
We don't have a like button. We do have subscribe though.
Click the notification bell so that you know whenever we post a new episode.
We don't have that either.
Comment down below.
Nope. Well, I guess you can do a comment. You can do a review.
What should we call it? We have to come up with a name for the Think Pro Gang.
Think Pro Gang.
Like they got to have a name. Like, what's up, Think Pro Gang?
Ew.
This is
I hate
Joe and Jason.
I hated everything you just said.